Hello, my name is Muhammad Adam bin Baharudin from Group 4. I'm going to presenting about the introduction of our group project, which is hardness testing. A hardness testing machine in Figure 1 is a device that determines a material's hardness by measuring the impact of a localized penetration by a standardized rounded or pointed indenter made of diamond, carbide, or hard steel on its surface. Penetration resistant, abrasion resistant, scratch resistant, and cutting resistant are all examples of hardness. The hardness of a material is determined by the amount of deformation that happens when a tiny hard steel ball or diamond tip is pushed into a surface at a specific load. Brinell, Vickers, and Rockwell tests, which evaluate penetration resistance, will be used in this investigation by using computer programming to achieve the result of each method. Various heat treatment techniques can modify material characteristics such as hardness to desirable values, depending on which of the following scenarios is of most relevance. A number of hardness tests are used. Hence, we assign the responsibility of developing a program that will assist operators in running traditional equipment, part machining time, total energy consumption, total operating cost, solid waste generation, and daily predicted productivity are the program's outputs. Vickers hardness test and Brinell hardness test with a separate database are the machine that need to be programmed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, girl. My name is Hun Chi Chang. I am from Group 4. So I will explain about the Geico curve and flow chart. Key is the Geico curve for the first function. Cast Hager ability. So we have 5 steps. The first step is start. The step 2 is get the mass for load, chemical for ball, and chemical for material. The step 3 is the formula to calculate the Brinell hardness number. The step 4 is display Brinell hardness number. The step 5 is end. Cookie is our Geico curve for the function called real resistance. So they have 5 steps here. So the first step is start. The second step is get the mass for rod and the average length for the diagonal lift by the increment. The step 3 is the formula to calculate the Vickers hardness number. The step 4 is display Vickers hardness number. The step 5 is end. Key is the Geico curve for the function 3, resistance equal impact. There is 5 steps. The step 1 is start. The step 2 is get the mass for load, chemical for the ball, and chemical for the incantation. The step 3 is the formula to calculate the Brinell hardness number. The step 4 is replace the Brinell hardness number. The step 5 is end. Okay, so I will explain about the flow chart. Key is the flow chart for the function 1, cast hierarchy. Game like the Geico curve. Key is the function flow chart for the function 2. Key is the flow chart for the function 3. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. My name is Hafiz bin Azwan, AD 190106, and now I will discuss about the database and the calculation. Okay, the first slide, we go to the database 1, Vickers hardness testing machine, which hardness machine divided by three machine, which is Vickers, Rockwell, and Brinell. So for database 4, Brinell hardness testing machine result, it shows about load, diameter on steel, diameter on aluminium, and ball diameter. So that for database 5, Vickers hardness testing machine result, they show the parameters, first reading, second reading, and third reading. So we go to calculation. Metal hardness formula, BHN equal to apply load divided by area of impression or indentation. BHN equal to 2p divided by pi d minus square root d squared minus d squared, where BHN equal to Brinell hardness number in kg over mm squared, p equal to load in kg, d equal to the ball diameter, and d equal to diameter on steel. So for the database about the Brinell hardness testing machine result, we try to calculate and we get BHN for steel and BHN for aluminium. So the next calculation, we try to find the average hardness. So for vehicle hardness number designed by HV equal to 1.8554 P over D squared. So we try to calculate, we put the number, we put the first reading and second reading and third reading to find the average of hardness and average hardness. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hello and good day. My name is Wahiduddin bin Abdul Wahid from Group 4, and today I will be presenting about the handbook criteria. So firstly, let's have a look at the hardness test machine. There are 6 points that we will have a look first, and to take the main point is and its function. Firstly is top cover plate. It's for access to remove the packaging material. Secondly is a front panel. It is used for operation screen for various operation. And there is a indenter assembly which hold the test ball. And 4 is elevating screw used for adjusting the measurement height of a test sample. And 5 is elevating nuts which used to lift the specimen to the indenter. And finally the on or off switch which used to turn machine power on or off. So firstly, let's go and have a look at the instructional objective that we have 4, where at the end of this lesson the student will be able to state the purpose of use of Brinell testing machine, and secondly is hardness test category, and thirdly able to classify the test that Brinell testing machine able to perform, and finally the proper hardness test operation. So firstly, this is the description first. The purpose of use of the Brinell test machine, it is used to determine the hardness which has circumstances where the overall material property are being ascertained and local variation in hardness. So secondly is the hardness test category. There are elastic hardness, resistant to cutting or absorption, and thirdly is resistant of indentation. For elastic hardness steel is used by accelerometer to measure, and for resistance to cutting or abrasion is known as the proper of rubbing, grinding, or wearing away by friction. There are 2 tests to determine this, which is crash and file test. And the resistance to indentation is carried out by impression into the another specimen resting on rigid platform. So this is generally a Brinell testing. So thirdly is classify the test hardness testing machine able to perform. So Brinell hardness testing machine ni has 3 functions. First, to test the hardenability. Secondly is to test the wear resistance, and finally is to resistance to impact test. So and finally is the fourth one is the proper use of hardness tester. In this proper use of hardness tester, there is include step to operate the machine to test the hardness test. It also contain the maximum load that the machine can measure, and it can be selected. It also contain the way how to read the scale of measure hardness, and finally instruction about the minimum limits distance impression centered away from the edge of the test sample. Okay, that's all for my part in the handbook criteria, and thank you.
For the first function, which is harden ability test, the C program is as follows. First, we call for the library at include studio.h and include maths.h. Then we declare the float f, capital D and small d, then float vhn. Next, we enter the value for the mass of load in kilogram and scan the value input into float f. Next, we enter the value for diameter of ball in millimeter and scan the value into float capital D. Then we enter the value for diameter of material in millimeter and scan the value into the small d. The calculation for BHN is 2 times f over pi times d times capital D minus square root capital D square minus small d square. Finally, we print the final output, which is the Brinell hardness number is %f BHN, return 0. Next, for the second function, which is wear resistant, first we call for library and then we declare the float load D and float HV. First, we enter the value for the mass of load in kilogram and scan the value into float load. Then, using printf, we enter the value for average length of diagonal left by intended in millimeter and scan the value into float D. For the calculation, HV is equal to 1.854, which is the constant, times by load over T square. Finally, we print the final output as the viscous hardness number is %f HV, return 0. For the third function, which is resistance to impact, first we need to call for the library and then we declare float load capital D and small d and float HB. First, we enter the value for the mass of load in kilogram and we scan the value input into float load. Then we enter the value for diameter of ball in millimeter and then we scan the value into float capital D. Next, we enter the value for diameter of indentation in millimeter and then we scan the value input into float small d. For the calculation, HB is equal to load over pi capital D over 2 times capital D minus capital D square minus d small d square. Lastly, we print the final output, which is the Brinell hardness number is %f HB, return 0. These are the output for Brinell hardness number for material steel. Next, this is the Brinell hardness number for aluminium. The last output is for Vickers hardness. That's all, thank you.
As a conclusion, finally, the program developed can minimize operational time, total energy consumption, cost, and solid waste creation while also increasing overall productivity. Simply enter the specified measurement into the software and the algorithm will discover a more precise statement to be implanted to the material. Hence, accurate measuring will result in more high-quality products, while it also can help save the environment by reducing the solid waste created. Total solid waste will be displayed at the program output, so we can manage to minimize and manage the waste created by the material. Besides that, hardness testing allows you to assess a material's characteristics such as strength, ductility, and wear resistance, and so determine if a material or material treatment is appropriate for the task at hand. Lastly is the limitation while we doing our group project. First limitation is inability to create programs due to a lack of experience. Next, almost try and error in every method in programming. Third, the program outputs fall short of the project objective. And number 4 is finding it difficult to come up with the appropriate command for the software. And lastly, take more time in order to complete the project because of other subject assignment. That's all for me. Thank you.